On Halloween night, a cold wind scraped along the narrow streets as if warning anyone who dared to wander. The moon was swollen and pale, hanging low like a watchful eye. Children laughed in costumes, unaware that something old had begun to stir beneath the town. Mara stepped outside her grandmother's house, clutching a lantern that flickered strangely. She felt an unease she couldn't name. The air tasted metallic, and every shadow seemed to breathe. Still, she followed the path toward the festival square. At the center of town stood the abandoned Whitlock Manor, its windows boarded like eyelids forced shut. Locals whispered that each Halloween the boards shifted a little, as though the house were straining to see again. Tonight, Mara swore she heard a creak. A low hum vibrated beneath her feet. It wasn't music from the festival, nor the chatter of villagers. It felt older, like a distant chant rising from the soil. Mara paused, lantern trembling, and wondered if she should turn back before curiosity broke her. Children darted around her, their laughter echoing unnaturally long. When she turned, their silhouettes stretched far behind them, far too long to be human. She blinked, and the shadows snapped back, but the chill down her spine refused to leave. The candy vendor waved her over, but something about his smile seemed painted, stretched too wide. His eyes didn't blink. She pretended not to notice, offering a polite nod before slipping past him. His grin followed her like a hook in the dark. A gust of wind snuffed half the lanterns in the square. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mara lifted her own lantern, and its flame curled upward, bending toward Whitlock Manor as though pulled by an unseen hand. She swallowed and stepped closer. A group of teens dared one another to approach the manor's gate. As the bravest touched it, the iron bars vibrated with a hollow clang. He yelped and ran back, but Mara sensed something awakening behind those rusted designs. Mara remembered her grandmother's warning. The dead wander freely on Halloween, but it's the hungry ones you must fear. The words resurfaced now, curling around her thoughts like fog, urging her to be careful where she placed her steps. She spotted an old woman draped in moth-eaten shawls. The woman stared directly at Mara, pupils pale and cloudy. With a trembling hand, she pointed at the manor and whispered, "Tonight, the door chooses who may enter." Then she vanished. Mara's lantern glowed brighter the closer she came to the manor. It cast long beams across the withered garden, revealing cracked statues with expressions twisted in agony. Vines crawled across the ground like living tendrils seeking warmth. A sudden scream split the night, followed by frantic footsteps. Two kids rushed past her, faces drained of color. "It opened," one cried. Mara turned in time to see the manor's front door widening slowly, groaning as if waking from sleep. Rather than flee, she felt drawn to it, compelled by some invisible thread winding around her chest. Every instinct told her to run, but curiosity burned hotter. She stepped onto the overgrown path, the earth crunching loudly beneath her boots. Inside, the foyer reeked of mold and something sour, like grief left to rot. Cobwebs draped the ceiling like tattered curtains. A staircase wound upward, each step marked by deep gouges as though someone had crawled instead of walked. The door slammed shut behind her. Dust exploded into the air. Mara spun, grabbing the handle, but it didn't budge. The house sighed deeply, a long exhale that sent shivers through her. It felt almost pleased she had entered. Portraits lined the walls, their faces scratched out. Only their eyes remained untouched, glowing faintly. As Mara passed, she felt them following her, their gazes prickling her skin. A hush fell over the hall as though expecting her next move. Her lantern flickered again, not from failing fuel, but from something brushing against the flame. She sensed movement behind her but found empty air when she turned. Yet the chill lingered, refusing to let her feel alone. A music box began playing upstairs, slow and off-key. Its tune was familiar, something her grandmother used to hum. The sound beckoned her to climb, though each creaking step felt like stepping into a deeper shadow. At the landing, she found the music box resting on a dusty table. It shouldn't have been playing. The crank wasn't moving. Still, the melody continued, twisting into a whispering voice calling her name. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She reached out to stop it, but before her fingers touched the lid, the box snapped shut violently. A gust of cold wind swept down the hallway. Far ahead, a door opened by itself, its hinges groaning like they resented movement. Inside was a child's bedroom frozen in time. Toys lay scattered across the floor, some with faces melted or warped. A doll sat upright on the bed, its head tilted, eyes glinting with faint red reflection from Mara's lantern flame. The doll's porcelain lips cracked open, releasing a rattling laugh that didn't belong to a child. Mara stumbled back, hitting the wall hard. The laugh spread, multiplying as though dozens of unseen children laughed along. The floor vibrated as footsteps, tiny yet numerous, scurried beneath the wooden boards. Mara's breath hitched. Something tugged at the hem of her coat, but when she looked down, she saw only dust swirling in frantic patterns. She fled the room, slamming the door behind her. The laughter stopped instantly, replaced by a heavy silence. Too heavy. It pressed against her eardrums until a muffled heartbeat, not her own, pulsed from within the walls. The hallway stretched impossibly long, as though the house rearranged itself to trap her. Shadows crept along the floor, merging into one long darkness that nipped at her heels. She forced herself forward, refusing to look back. A sudden thud came from a nearby door. Then another. Something inside pounded rhythmically, growing louder. The wood began to crack. Mara ran, her lantern's flame whipping wildly, painting frantic streaks across the warped wallpaper. A staircase she didn't remember appeared ahead, spiraling downward into pitch black. The pounding behind her intensified. Without thinking, she descended, gripping the railing as her lantern dimmed under a growing, suffocating cold. At the bottom lay a basement door barely hanging on its hinges. She nudged it open. The air inside was damp and bitter, filled with whispers like breath brushing against her neck. Her lantern struggled, casting trembling light. Against the far wall stood a massive mirror draped with a white sheet. Something beneath the fabric moved, slow and deliberate, as though stretching awake. Mara's throat tightened. She approached carefully, each step agonizingly loud. Her fingers brushed the sheet. A voice behind her whispered, "Don't." She spun, finding no one. When she turned back, the sheet slipped off by itself, revealing her reflection, except it wasn't her. The mirrored Mara smiled cruelly. Its eyes were hollow, swirling with black smoke. It mouthed words she couldn't hear, then pressed its hand against the glass. The surface rippled. An icy hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. She screamed, yanking herself free. The mirror, Mara, slammed her palm against the inside of the glass, cracking its surface. A low rumble filled the basement. The walls began to pulse like a giant heartbeat. Mara staggered back, clutching her lantern tightly. Dark tendrils seeped from the cracks, slithering across the floor toward her feet. She leapt aside, darting toward the stairs. The basement door slammed shut before she reached it, trapping her as shadows thickened into shapes. A towering figure emerged, stitched together like fragments of lost souls. Its face flickered between dozens of expressions: fear, anger, sorrow. When it spoke, 1,000 overlapping voices filled the room, chanting her name. Mara backed against the wall. The creature moved closer, extending a hand stitched with mismatched fingers. It didn't attack. Instead, it pointed at the mirror, as though urging her to confront the reflection, still clawing inside. Summoning courage, Mara approached the fractured mirror. Her reflection snarled, pounding harder. She raised her lantern, its flame flaring bright. The creature behind her hummed, as though lending strength from its many trapped souls. The lantern's light pierced the mirror, burning away the smoke within her reflection's eyes. It shrieked silently, its form unraveling. Cracks spread like lightning until the entire surface exploded into glittering shards. A shockwave rippled through the basement. The creature let out a relieved sigh before dissolving into dust. The basement door swung open. Mara stumbled out, gasping, her lantern brighter than ever despite its battered frame. The house groaned, furious at her escape. The staircase twisted violently, trying to throw her off balance. She clung to the railing, pushing through the chaos until she reached the foyer, where the portraits now wept black tears. The front door swung open as though the house was expelling her. Wind howled through the foyer, carrying the wails of the children she'd heard earlier. Mara sprinted forward, desperate to escape before the house changed its mind. The moment she crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind her, boards snapping back into place. She collapsed on the cold grass, shaking. The festival lights were gone. The square stood empty, silent, as if abandoned for years. Her lantern flickered, revealing faint footprints circling her, tiny ones. She whipped around, but the prints led nowhere. Only the sound of distant laughter echoed, fading slowly into the crisp night air. Whitlock Manor loomed quietly, but its windows were no longer boarded. They stared openly, glass gleaming like watchful eyes. Mara shuddered, realizing the house was no longer sleeping. It was waiting for someone else. She rose on trembling legs, forcing herself toward the road home. Yet every few steps she felt a tug, as though unseen hands tried pulling her back. She resisted, whispering to herself that she was still alive, still free. The festival area remained eerily empty. Costume scraps littered the ground, fluttering in the wind. Mara picked up a child's mask, a cracked pumpkin face. Its inside was warm, as though recently worn, despite the vanished crowd. A shadow slipped past the corner of her vision. She turned, seeing nothing. But the laughter returned, louder now, skittering across the rooftops like playful demons. She broke into a run, desperate to leave the town behind. When she reached her grandmother's house, the door was ajar. A single candle burned inside, its flame dancing wildly. Mara hesitated, stepping carefully. On the table lay a note written in trembling handwriting, "Never enter twice." As she read the message, the candle flame bent sharply toward the window. Mara followed its direction. Outside, Whitlock Manor seemed closer than before, as though the earth itself had shifted to bring it nearer. A final whisper filled the room. Halloween isn't over. Mara's lantern dimmed completely. She felt the house watching her from across the town, its hunger stretching through the night like claws searching for their next visitor. Mara blew out the candle, clutching her lantern tightly. She promised herself she'd never return. Yet deep within Whitlock Manor, something stirred again, smiling in the dark, eager for the next soul foolish enough to answer its call. The night outside pressed against the windows like a living thing. Mara paced the small room, lantern trembling in her hands. Every time she blinked, she felt the manor's presence. Not seen, not heard, but felt like a cold breath on the back of her neck. The floorboards creaked softly, even though she stood still. It wasn't the house settling. These creaks moved with purpose, circling her slowly, as though invisible footsteps traced the perimeter of the room. Her heartbeat quickened. She grabbed her coat and moved toward the door, but the lantern's flame bent sharply, pointing once more toward the distant shape of Whitlock Manor. It glowed like an omen, refusing to be ignored. Outside, fog began to roll in across the fields, thick and unnaturally fast. It slithered over the road like fingers reaching out. Mara stepped back instinctively, realizing the mist wasn't drifting, it was seeking. A low groan carried through the fog, deep and ancient. It didn't sound like wind. It sounded like a door, a massive wooden door swinging open somewhere miles away. A door that only wanted one visitor. The lantern flickered violently and then steadied, brighter than before. Its glow stretched across the fog, carving a narrow path. Mara's breath hitched. The lantern was guiding her again, but this time not toward danger. Toward warning, something moved in the fog. A silhouette hunched and wavering, limping as though its bones didn't fit inside its skin correctly. It shuffled closer, its features lost in the pale haze, until only its whisper reached her. "Don't go home, child." Mara froze. She recognized the voice from the night before, the old woman who had vanished after warning her about the manor's door. Yet her tone now carried urgency, threaded with fear. The silhouette steadied, and Mara could finally make out its form. The old woman's shawl clung to her, soaked and tattered. Her eyes, once cloudy, now flickered with frantic light. Something had chased her here. "They know you got out," the woman rasped. The house isn't angry, it's impatient. It wants you back before sunrise. Mara's stomach twisted. Why me? She whispered. You woke the mirror, the woman replied, and the mirror woke it. Behind the fog came a soft tapping, dozens of tiny hands patting the earth. Then giggles, faint but unmistakable, the same children from inside the manor, their laughter echoing like distant chimes. Mara felt the air tighten, as if the world itself held its breath. The old woman stepped closer, gripping her arm with surprising strength. You must leave this place, she insisted. The longer you stay, the more real their path becomes. The lantern's flame shrank suddenly, shrinking to a pin of light. Mara panicked. The lantern never dimmed unless something powerful was near. The fog around her swirled faster, forming shapes that resembled faces, stretching and dissolving. A cold child's voice whispered beside her ear, though nothing stood there. Come play with us, Mara. Her blood froze. The voice sounded like her own reflection's echo, calling from beyond the shattered mirror. The old woman looked toward the manor's direction with trembling dread. You didn't just escape, she whispered. You broke something inside it, and now the house wants balance. Mara stepped backward toward her grandmother's gate. I'm not going back, she said firmly. The old woman's face twisted with sorrow. You may not have a choice. The house called you once, now it follows. A distant thunder rolled, except it wasn't thunder. It was the heavy slam of the manor's front door. Even from miles away, Mara felt its vibration in her ribs. A summons, a command, a threat. The fog shifted suddenly, parting down the middle like curtains. Something large moved within it, dragging long shadows across the ground. The children's giggles ceased all at once, swallowed by silence. The old woman pushed Mara toward the road. Run, she urged, before it arrives. What is coming? Mara asked, voice trembling. The woman whispered a single word. Your reflection. Mara turned to flee, but before she could take a full step, she saw it emerging through the fog. Her, not distorted, not monstrous. Her exact self, perfectly mirrored, smiling with the cold certainty of someone who had already replaced her. Mara stumbled backward, her lungs tightening as the perfect copy stepped into the moonlight. The reflection's footsteps made no sound. It tilted its head with unsettling calm, as though studying a piece of property that had finally been found. The fog curled protectively around the reflection, swirling like eager hands guiding it forward. Its smile widened, but its eyes remained frozen, empty mirrors with a faint pulse of red deep inside them, like embers behind glass. Mara, it said in her exact voice, yet hollowed, stretched thin. You left too soon. The house isn't finished with you. Its tone wasn't threatening. It was patient, like a teacher waiting for a student to accept a lesson. The old woman stepped between them, raising a trembling hand. You have no claim here, she snarled. She broke the mirror. Your door is closed. The reflection didn't even look at her. It was never my door, it answered softly. The air grew heavy, pressing on Mara's chest. She felt the same pull she'd felt inside Whitlock Manor, a tug beneath her ribs, like an invisible string pulling her toward the reflection. The bond hadn't broken, it had strengthened. The reflection raised its hand, revealing the same sigil that had burned onto Mara's wrist earlier. But on the reflection's skin, the symbol glowed brighter, more complete, as if it were the true bearer and Mara merely the shadow. I was born for the house, it said. You were only meant to bring me out. Mara's stomach dropped. She realized the truth. The mirror hadn't wanted to trap her. It wanted to release the thing that looked like her. The old woman whispered fiercely, "Run!" But Mara was rooted, unable to look away from the reflection's eyes. Eyes that knew her thoughts, her fears, her memories. Eyes that weren't hers anymore. The reflection stepped closer, fog trailing behind it like a dying veil. Come back, it urged. If you return willingly, the house won't take what you love in your place. Mara's heart slammed. What I love, she breathed. The reflection smiled wider.